Good morning, everyone. I would start with a question. How many of you already know or heard about Collaboration Hub? So raise your hand, please. Okay, so I have some good news and bad news. So let's start with bad news. You will hear the explanation again, hopefully with different slides, so that that's not the same message. The good news is that we will have some very cool stuff demo provided by César, where you could actually see the platform in action. Okay? So for the ones that already know this, I have been to explain. You of course understand the concept, but we never actually show it live, and today is the day. So explaining Collaboration Hub, we have to start by the why. Okay, why do we need Collaboration Hub? Why we came up with the Collaboration Hub topic? So the first thing is clients. So customers, for the ones that are here, if you remember, some of you start asking us, and let's go back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we started receiving a lot of requests from our customers to participate in our implementation, MES implementation project. Okay, I know that we hire you guys to actually do the implementation, but we want to be part of this. We want to get knowledge, we want to help, maybe even release some scope, so we could actually do some part of the scope so that you can focus on the maybe more complex things, and we would also try to do something. The other part is collaboration with partners. You also know that we have been facing a very difficult challenge, and maybe this was 3 years ago, with the capacity for our MES implementation projects. We tried to hire a lot, but we actually went to our partner network and we brought a lot of people inside critical manufacturing. Okay? And this was a challenge. If you start to think about what is necessary in terms of security and also infrastructure to support all the suddenly different companies and different people working directly on your infrastructure, this can be quite a challenge. And we lacked a good way to do this. But of course we have evolved and we'll understand what we have done there. The need for a project handover. What this means is that when we finalize an MES implementation, and you heard during the presentation main stage that an implementation is never finished, right? But there are phases, and once we actually end a first phase, we actually need to hand over the project, maybe to a partner, maybe to the customer directly, or to a customer in the first phase, and the customer later on decides to work with one or many partners. So there was a clear need for this, okay? Even for our partners, when they were asked by our customers to actually continue the project, said, I mean, I've been working with you, I have seen the degree of automation that you have, how can I use it? Okay? And the only thing that we'll say is, okay, you have the documentation how to install things, but the automation you have to build because the tools that we have are internal. And of course we have two options. One, we could actually open source the tools, okay? And said, okay, you can use them, but we know, I mean, we have been in business for some time, and you guys will ask for documentation, you will ask for support, and if there is no one providing this will create eventually frustration, okay? So this would not be an option, and we actually have to have something there. And one of the key points as well, and I already approached this in a bit, is that we want to share everything that we have done in terms of the tooling, in terms of the knowledge, and in terms of automation on our projects. So for the ones working with us already, they know that internally we are completely spinning MES environments automatically, doing automated tests, provided even validation reports done in an automated way, especially for regulated industries. So this is something that we already have and we want to share with partners and customers, okay? And last but not least, this is part of our implementation or deployment strategy and vision, okay? I will cover that in a second with some slides explaining what the vision is and why collaboration is important in this equation. So, going into the solution. So, it is a cloud platform or cloud-based platform. Why? Because it needs to be accessible from anywhere in the world. We have customers and partners spread around the world, and we have to have a way for them to collaborate in a single platform this platform needs to be available from everywhere. So this platform will allow you to actually have clear visibility and collaboration within the same project, meaning that everyone will be working in the same project, okay? So if you are familiar with a project, backlog and so on, everyone will see the same things. Everyone will be able to interact with the same things. No more synchronizations, no more emails back and forward. Everything will be shared in a single place. The deployment process, this is where we actually put, or trying to bring the experience, is that we'll be providing as part of the solution all the tooling that you have seen. For the ones that have already seen the tooling, they know what I'm talking about. For the ones that have not seen, this means that all the tooling to automate tests, automate starting MES environments, and actually carry out a complete deployment through the different dev systems, staging systems into production can be completely and fully automated, okay? So this is important because this is where the solution will shine. Within the platform, quality comes integrated, and quality comes into aspects. One is the testing, okay, the ability. We have an embedded automation test platform, framework. Most of you already know. We have to cope with MES scenarios and also equipment integration scenarios. This is part of the solution. But also, so when you run and you push code, it has to be built, it has to be tested, and you instantly receive a report about that. For regulated industry, you actually need to have evidence that you have performed this testing, okay? So we are able to generate, when we have tooling for this, that will actually run the scripts, the tests that you have specified, okay? And you specify the test, and you specify the expected result. We run these tools, and we get actually a report, it's a document, where we actually go from the requirement to the test that was performed, the expected result, and the evidences with the result by having screenshots. This will be, and it's completely integrated in the solution. And of course, handling complex and large scale. What is this? It's that I can automate if I have a multi-site. So I'm a company with multiple sites around the globe. I can actually automate and have pipelines that can actually deliver this, not only on staging systems or dev systems, but to production, okay? This means anyone with access to a project will be able to run a pipeline that can install the environment remotely. Imagine that you have a P1 incident, like a production impact incident, and we are in support. Probably you are working with a partner, a system integrator. That should be in the call as well. But we need to provide a kind of fix. It could be a product, it could be something that was customized that needs to be fixed. So there is a pipeline that needs to run. And instead of trying to apply a patch in production, we can actually go through this validation process, get the results, and if you are happy and satisfied with the results, then we can push it into production, okay? All these things can be automated and executed at any time. So, key features. We have project roles, what we call project roles, and this goes for everyone that interacts with the project. Can go from the simple readers to the one that just needs to have visibility where we are in the project, right? And if you know how we work, at the end of the sprint you get kind of a report where we are, what was done, and so on. Here you have continuous visibility on the status of the project, because you can log in and see maybe a burn down chart that currently teams have. But you already see the level of transparency that we are providing with the solution. Everyone will be seeing what is happening. Then we have development environments. This actually is known as the DevOps, and this is particularly important for customers, partners that may have security constraints, okay? So you cannot actually install the tooling that is required on your laptop, and we had a situation like this here in Porto. So if you are not able to install everything that is necessary, you can provide the virtual machine running in the cloud, completely isolated from the rest of the things, but you have all the tooling that is required to work. And you will be working like you are on your laptop. César will actually demo this. You work like you are working on a laptop, and you are connected remotely to this DevOps, and everything is running there, including the MES. You can debug everything that is running remotely. So there is a possibility for us to provide this as part of the platform, but actually this is optional. Automated CI/CD pipeline. So the idea is that we automate. So every time there is a code that is pushed to the repository, there is a build, there is a process also behind, which is okay. The code needs to be reviewed by 1 or 2 persons. Okay, so there is a step in the pipeline to actually do this. Then I want to actually build it. Is it functional? I need to run and spin an MES with those changes so that I can perform the test and see if there were any problems with the code. Everything is okay, then I merge the code in the project, and eventually, if we are satisfied, we can then upgrade this to releases. I will cover that in detail in a second, but we can actually promote the releases and fully automate the process. MES environments as part of the platform. So we are running this and hosting this for you, which means that all the infrastructure that is required, the complexity of starting an MES environment, destroying an MES environment, put the changes there, doing these deployments is part of the solution, okay? It is, again, a cloud approach. So you get, in this case, 3 URLs where you can log in the system, of course, authenticated with the security portal, so the accounts that you already use for customer portal, but you will be able to actually log in the MES that was just spun by the pipeline, the automation pipeline, and you test the changes that you just did. So this is instantaneous. So it's the time that to run the build. Maybe it's some minutes, but you get an MES environment. So if you start doing the math, how long you need until we code changes, until you actually see it and are able to use it, just do the math. And you can instantly see this, okay? Push code, here it is. Use it, test it, validate it. This is very important for feedback. Package repository. So once we are satisfied with what we have done in terms of functionality, in terms of the features, we can promote the build that we have tested, everything is okay, to a release, okay? Once we do this, we package this like change management, we actually label everything and we package it and put it in the repository. This repository is available then for you to do the installations elsewhere. So when you actually install in production, we are fetching from this repository because you want to install a version of product, right? So you have done your MES customization version 1.0. So once it is published in the repository, this is what you want to get when you install version 1.0. So it is coming from the repository that is part of the solution. And what orchestrates this, and it is behind the scenes, is DevOps Center. You probably already know this. This is our way to do and automate the installations. So we are able to actually deploy on-prem, cloud, hybrid scenarios, fully automated, based on this tool, okay? So it's available. You don't need collaboration now for DevOps Center, so it's there. What we are using is all the tooling that we have within collaboration is using actually DevOps Center to automate things. So going to the roles. We have different roles, and as we'll see then, there is a subscription model for this, so different prices for the different roles, but we can have the reader, which is read access to the project, so I just want to know the status. We have the stakeholder, that is someone that can manage the backlog, will have access to the MES environment, so as he is defining the backlog, changing priorities, he is one of the persons that probably will validate the software from the user interaction perspective, so this will be a specific role. We have the contributor and developers, and I will join them together, because the only difference, those are developers, and the only difference is that the developer actually has the dev box, okay? Here it is the option. So if you don't want the dev box, you feel capable of doing this in your laptop, you can do it and you are knowledgeable, then you are a contributor, okay? If not, we can provide as part of the solution a machine for you to work. And I will actually tell you a story. We had a customer that sent 2 persons to Porto for 2 weeks, okay? To be able to work and participate in the project that we were implementing. And they came here and they could not install the tooling in their laptops. They opened an IT ticket, which is normal, right? Open an IT ticket and to get the authorization to install the tooling. But I had the MES sponsor calling me and say, we need a solution, because I know this ticket will take time and they are staying for 2 weeks, so we need a solution. And we have prepared this dev box for them, okay? So we prepared the machines and they were working for 2 weeks. Once they were leaving, they received the reply to the ticket, and guess what? The answer was that, no, you cannot do it. So you wait some weeks and you get the answer that it's not, you cannot do it. But we want to be productive, we want to be fast in implementing. So this can either be a transition solution, okay, until you get things approved, sorted out on your side to actually get what is needed, or maybe it could be the platform to work, because each time you connect to a project, it will be built and having all the tooling that is necessary for you to run or develop in this case. So going to the deployment vision, okay? This is something that I'm hammering internally for some years already. And it is quite simple if you look at when you try to implement this, it's quite a piece of engineering. The idea is that you will have someone writing code, okay? And literally someone. It could be a developer working a product from critical manufacturing, it could be someone from a project, even from critical manufacturing when working on a project. It could be a system integrator, could be yourselves, customers using actually the system, doesn't matter. Once you run the code, we want to make sure that somehow there is a magic box, a magic place that will make sure that whatever you are doing actually is done properly, it works, it is tested against wherever it was the purpose of actually pushing the code, and eventually, again, with some magic, we have a release and then we want to push it across the globe. And across the globe could be meaning different dev environments, different staging systems, different sites, and different production systems. Okay, this is the idea, the vision behind. And attached to this idea, to this vision, we have done a lot. Okay, we started by having a deployment framework. Okay, a way to actually deploy and deploy consistently, where you can define packages, you have dependencies on the package, so you have an automated way to deal with this. Of course, to get to this level of scaling, we had to think about containers. So we started many years ago moving toward containers, and in 2020, it was the first version, so August 2020 was the first version, full containerized. Okay, we had MES version 8, which was full containerized at that time. And this one of the steps towards the vision, because we wanted to really automate. And we actually get to that automation internally. Okay, so the way that the process or the working mode that I'm describing for Collaboration Hub, this is what we have internally. But as I don't control, and this is where the problem comes, I cannot control the full process. Why? Because I cannot reach, once it goes into your side, and to your side could be a partner, could be a customer, but typically a customer, you get the version, and then I don't control the process anymore. Okay? I do control some of the deployments through DevOps Center, but I cannot control the process. So the Collaboration Hub is actually the missing piece, the missing element in this vision. Why? Because it's no longer a magic box. We have Collaboration Hub. This is where I push the source code. We all work in the same project, and I can actually deploy from there to all environments, which means now I control the entire pipeline. And don't get me wrong by the control, because it's actually, if I can actually be involved in the full pipeline, this means that anyone that is contributing to that pipeline, could be with a product, could be customization, is able to actually initiate a release and publish this at scale, okay? So I heard yesterday in one of the presentations in the main stage, someone saying that, okay, they already did the deployment of the MES, and they are already planning upgrades for that MES. And the idea is that once you do it and you have the pipelines in place, the next time there is effort. I mean, I'm not saying that there is effort for doing the upgrade, especially major versions. There are some work to do specifically on things that may break. But once you have this tested, pushing to production should be automated, okay? To staging or to production. And for regulated industry, this is especially important because we now are able to generate reports in all the steps. So if you know this, we would actually hand over a document with the validation once we deliver the release. Now, we can do that, but there's no need for that, because we can actually even go, and you will see in the presentation, we can actually even go to your system, I'll get in a second, and perform the tests there, even before shipping a release. So, typical working mode today. And I have been, 2 months ago, I will disclose the name of the customer. I was at the customer premises. Some of the colleagues are here. I was there and we were discussing this. One of the problems is that the team in critical manufacturing will actually ship a new version of the project, okay? It gets a new version. They test it on their environment with their testing, and guess what? Things are not working. So the release is coming back, okay? And the team here at Critical has a very hard job to understand what failed. Why? Because the tests here were passing, so this means it's a scenario that I'm not testing, so I need to understand the scenario so that I can get to the problem and fix it. And with this, we can have more interactions in terms of releases and testing, and some email back and forward, and frustration is building up, okay? So with this, we can actually have the project teams, and again, applies to Critical or to any partner or system integrator, they can perform the tests in your systems, if you allow, of course. Okay? You set up a quality system. That quality system is on your premises. It has a copy of the production database or production data, and you can test it there. So the data does not leave your premises. We go there, and we'll see how. We'll go there and we'll run the same build and pipeline that we run in Collaboration Hub at your premises. So, how it works, okay? And this is the final slide, because before I hand over to César to actually show you how it works. We have the different roles, so different people interact with the system. Now we are already make it more narrow in terms of technology. We use Azure DevOps, okay? This is Microsoft. We are not hosting the source code. So this eliminates and answers a lot of questions about security, where the source code and so on. We do have flexibility where we actually deploy this. This means that we can, if you are in Europe and you have to comply with Europe legislation, we can run it in Europe. So Microsoft offers the service, and we can select that when actually creating the project. So we control where we actually deploy this, but we will be using Azure DevOps, the cloud version, okay? Meaning that you access the project. Everyone is working on the same project. A developer would use the dev box that is connected to the project, can push the code, work locally. It has an MES instance. For the ones doing this, all the things about the licenses and having a development license is handled, okay? So you have the environment there, and we'll take care of this. So you are certified the code, you push the source code. Source code is maintained in DevOps Center. This is the infrastructure where we run the MES. Okay, so this means behind technically there is a Kubernetes cluster running the 3 environments. We have database servers, we have build servers as part of the solution, okay? When you actually push the source code, there will be a pipeline that needs to go through the process that you define in your project, maybe a code review, testing, build the source code. If you have to test it against an MES so that you run the test, it will actually deploy an MES through DevOps Center, but here, and you get an MES environment with the changes that you just did. You are satisfied with the release, you package it, and you publish, okay? It's on the repository, it is available to be published. Once, and this is the connection that we can have to your environment, again, it's optional, because it, again, in terms of security, you need to allow, and there are some requirements, technical requirements for this. If you opt for this option, we will ask you for a build server, okay? It's a machine. There are some specifics for the configuration, but we will ask for a machine, and we'll go there and install the ADO agent. It's not our agent, it's the Microsoft ADO agent, okay? The build one. If you are familiar with the developing software, this is the ADO agent that we install there. Once we install it and configure it, it is connected then to the project, which means that when I run the pipelines, I can say this pipeline is to run on that build server, okay? The same pipeline that I was running here against this environment is now running on this side against your quality system, typically, or a dev system if you want to go step by step, okay? But we can orchestrate that as well. It's the same pipeline, so we can even build source code there to make sure there's no difference, or if you have some particularities in the process. We have the process of actually going to quality, test the version, okay? If you want to deploy it then in production, we can, and the idea is that we get a version that was already published and we push it into production. So we'll have some questions at the end. So César, now with you.
Okay, thank you. So what I will showcase now is basically using Collaboration Hub. I will go from the requirement creation until the deployment. Unfortunately, I will not be able to get it fully deployed. As Adélio explained, the pipelines take some time, so we'll not reach that step, but we will walk you through. And what we will do during this demonstration is I will create a requirement in the Azure DevOps that all of the team members have access to. I will assign a new developer that was not part of the team but will support the team implementing these new requirements. I will show you how the local environment setup is performed using the DevBox that Adélio explained. I will then implement the requirement and test it, and I will create the pull request and then walk through the pipeline workflow until the request is completed, or the requirement is completed. So let me just close this, and now what I will start by showing is, as a product owner, my project already exists. We will use Customer Portal as our entry point for the Collaboration Hub, where you will have access to the project and to the users, and it will allow you to jump to Azure DevOps, to the dev boxes, and so on.
This is the part that when you are using and you saw the roles, the different roles in the project, this is where you assign. It can kind of self-serve. So you buy a pack of subscriptions like Microsoft Office, you buy a subscription and then you assign to someone, okay? The management will be done within Customer Portal so that you can, maybe someone is using a license and now just left the company, so you actually want to exchange the name. You will be doing this, and you can do this by yourself, not relying on depending on the critical manufacturing to do so.
Exactly. So I, as a product owner, will jump to the Azure DevOps, and what I will do is you'll see that the Azure DevOps is fully configured. So this will also be delivered by the Collaboration Hub, so automation on creating this project with the scaffolding of our solution and the pipelines and so on. And as a product owner, what I will do is I will go to my sprints and I will create a new requirement to be implemented by my developer, okay, for my new team member. So in this case, I will just copy the title and I will copy. I want, the code already has an API for creating notifications, so it's a simple use case just for demonstration purposes. What I will do is I will ask my developer to enhance this API that is used by our IoT machines to create notifications in the system. I will put my requirement description and I will put my acceptance criteria description. Oops, here. Okay, so at this point, I have created the new requirements, and I need my developer, that is Dave, to implement it. So what I want to show you is that on my project, right now, these are my users. So I have 2 contributors and a reader, as Adélio explained the profiles. Dave is still not here. I can show you that. Let me just move Dave into here. So this is Dave's mailbox, but Dave has access to the portal as well. He has access to Collaboration Hub, no access to any projects yet, no access to any environments as well. And if I try to access directly my Azure DevOps URL, I cannot access it. So what we do here is we use Portal. So the idea is that we'll have project managers that will be able to add and remove users from their projects. So I will add Dave, my Dave developer, as a contributor, okay? What this will do, this will integrate with my Azure DevOps instance, and it will give access to Dave to my project. Based on the role, it will assign different permissions. So as a contributor, we'll have access to the backlog and to the source code. So now, if I change back to Dave and I go into my mail, I should have received an email saying that I was invited to Azure DevOps and that I now should have access to my example organization where my project is. So if I go to my Azure DevOps, I can access it. So I now have my example project available. I can see the sprints I can see the source code, I can see pipelines, and on my customer portal as well, I now have access to the project and to the environment. So the idea is that then, as a developer with the DevBox, I will be able to clone this repository from the portal and control my developer machine from the portal itself to provide some shortcuts. But for this demonstration, what I will do is, as Dave, I will configure my authentication into Azure DevOps. So the first thing that I will do is I will open the new requirement that was created for me to implement. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, and what I will do, and of course this is a showcase, so this is not how agile projects are done. So these topics should be refined, should be discussed as a team, and should be put on the sprint for someone to pick it up. But for demonstration purposes, I will just allow Dave to pick it up and to implement it. So in this case, we do as we normally do. So I will just create a task below my work item. So I have traceability on who did it. And I will just call it develop implement requirement. Okay, so I will save it and I will mark it as active. As active. Okay, so at this point, Dave assigned the work item to himself. So stakeholders, product owners, the rest of the team know that Dave is working on this topic and that is a work in progress until Dave pushes the code into the source code. So now Dave uses SSH for integration with Azure DevOps. So what I will do is I will just go here and I will say I want to clone this, not using HTTPS, that will enforce me to have a personal access token, but instead using SSH keys. And I will first manage, I'm using 1Password from Microsoft as my SSH agent. So I'll just copy my public key and I will configure in Azure DevOps saying anything that comes from this key, it's me. So it will track any push that I do to the source code using SSH instead of HTTPS. Now, as I am a developer with a subscription, I have access to a dev container, DevBox, to have a cloud developer system. So what I will show you is, and what we provide in this case is a CLI to support this cloning. So I will just clone my path in this case, and I will open my command line, and I will write CMF collaboration of code. I will put my DevBox name. So this is a DevBox that I already use for other projects. So it's already available for me. It's already configured in my machine. And I will say where I want this repository to be. So I'll just call it Summit. And then I need to put my IP address, ROS name, 1032. And what this will do is it will start a new workspace on my DevBox. It will use SSH connection to authenticate against the DevBox as well. So we are not sharing access tokens. We are just using SSH whenever it's possible for authentication. So now it's trying to get to clone the repository from the ADO using the SSH key that I have provided. So we found a match and we will authenticate that it's me, that it's running. And as soon as this finishes, it will open Visual Studio Code that will have the source code ready for usage. And I will then, as a developer, be ready to start the implementation. So this opens, okay. One thing that I will do for demo purposes only is I will I have a command inside of my dev box that is to copy my backup that is already inside of the dev box. Otherwise, I will need to copy it from my machine to the dev box. And in the future, the goal is that this backup is already on an npm repository that everyone has access to, and the source code or the project is able to pull it.
The backup is for the database that is used for your MES local installation. Okay, so when you will have an MES running on DevBox, and it will have a database already that is shared across the projects, that you don't start from scratch. Okay, so the team decides when it is synchronized. That's the wide repository. So every day, typically here in Porto, we actually do it every day, and we publish this database copy that everyone uses on their laptop to develop. Okay.
Okay. So what I've done is now using Visual Studio Code, and one thing that is good in here is that I don't need to have a lot of extensions in my Visual Studio Code. I just need remote. Let me just confirm. I need the dev containers.
Just one thing to notice is that the Visual Studio Code is running on César laptop. Okay, the things that you are seeing inside are actually being done in the virtual machine. Okay, so the system is running there. When you actually run a command, it's running there through SSH, and it feels like you are working on your machine. Okay.
Yes. So all of the heavy lifting is done inside of the cloud virtual machine, and my computer is just using Visual Studio Code to access the dev container inside of the virtual machine through SSH connection. So what I've done here, or what I need to do now, is to start preparing my local environment. So I already have the source code within my dev container, not in my machine. And I will start by building my solution. Okay, so I will start by building my solution in order to prepare my local environment. So the first thing that I want to see as a developer is my local environment running? Do I have the required tools to start developing and to ensure that what I do is working as expected? So I'm running the build of my business solution. So this will use the repositories that the project has configured to retrieve any requirements or any dependencies that exist. And after this, what I will do is using the CMF dev CLI that it's already used on the project, I will start a dev container within the virtual machine with the full MES stack for me to be able to test the implementation that I do. So this is finishing the build.
One important thing is that the data, so when you are writing code in this virtual machine, we are storing this in a different disk, which means that we will give you also the possibility to refresh the machine. So if you are encountering a problem, you can actually refresh the machine, so it means reinstall it, create it from scratch, but we will attach the data so that you don't lose the data, okay? And also when you change between projects, okay? Now you are on project A, you switch for project B, then the workspace changes, but the changes are in the disk still. So when you get back, you don't lose the things that you were doing, okay?
Exactly. So what I'm doing here is I use the local stackup command. So this is starting a lot of containers for the MES local environment. These are all running within the virtual machine, and I can see what is going on the virtual machine and what are the containers being executed and running currently on the virtual machine. So what I can do is I can access the logs, I can control the containers, and I can know exactly at which point my local environment is currently on while I am restoring and preparing it to work on. So I can see that it's installing as expected, so it's now restoring the database into my local environment. While this is executing, and to save some time, what I will do is I will start building the HTML, the UI project, so I can access the MES running, the host. So at this point, I have some commands here. So basically what it does is it enters into the HTML folder and it starts building the HTML. The goal for this is so I have visual confirmation that the requirement that I need to do is working. So I will have MES UI. In this case, in this demonstration, I will just do backend implementation. But if I needed to do UI implementation, that will be possible because I will have a full MES system inside of this dev machine without the need of having a lot of memory and a lot of hardware to be able to hold the MES. So while this executes, this takes some time. I can always check back what is the state. So I can see that it's now preparing the IoT packages into my local environment. And while this is running, what I want to do to save some time to you as well, because time is short, I will just open a new Visual Studio, also running against my developer machine for my test project. So what I want to do is I will have two different solutions, or two different Visual Studio instances. It was not this that I wanted to do. Go. CMS, tests. OK, so I'm able to have multiple instances, all of them pointing to my dev box, so that I can work on different solutions at the same time. In this case, I want integration tests, and I also want the business solution. So in this one, what I will use is I will come to my tests that already exist. I can see the tests that were already in the solution. In this case, I have some normal tests that validate that my API is actually creating the notifications with the information that the API supports. And I will build it. .net.build in order to have the tests appearing here so that I can execute them against my local environment. Okay? So what I need to do as well is I need to open the solution. One thing that disenforces the dev container is the usage of the Visual Studio Code. So the Visual Studio Code needs to be used as an entry point for your dev container to be able to develop and implement the requirements and to access the MES solution. Okay? So let me just change back to the other one to see how the installation is going. I can see that it says that the installation was processed. A lot of integration entries were processed as well. So if I go to my original one, I can see that, yes, Environment Manager is running. I'm just waiting for my HTML to start. So let's just give it a little bit more of time. This one is finished. Let me just build it here. Okay. Reload. Okay, so this is almost over. Oh no. npm run start. Oh, not, yes, run start. Okay. So it is building. So at this point, I'm serving. So what happens is that my UI container is not actually the UI. It's just a redirection of requests. And what happens is that my dev container is able to open ports so that I can access the containers that are running inside of my developer machine.
This step is very important because now we have the MES running on the virtual machine, okay, so the dev box, but it's being served in your laptop, okay? So you have a port, so when you access localhost and the port that is there, you actually find the MES environment that is running on the dev box, okay? This is important because it feels like you are working locally, but actually you are working on the virtual machine.
Okay, and it appears that we encounter an issue.
It's a live demo, that's why it's
Always the same. So let me see if I can just fix it by restarting my stack. Oops, not this one. Or maybe by restarting this one. Let me see if this appears. I will just try to stop the stack and restarting it to see if the problem is on my UI redirection. So because I already installed, this process will be faster because the env manager will already see that the environment is installed and ready to start. So, is the UI part? I'm not sure what could be the problem now for this one. Let me just confirm that is start instead of serve. It should be, oh no, okay. npm run serve. Serve, okay. Okay, so my bad, I did the wrong command.
Live debugging, and live support as well. You saw that there is live support.
So, okay, so now we have localhost running. So you saw that I needed to authenticate the same, so it's using security portal internally as well as a container within my dev box, and I can now access locally my MES system. What I want to do is I will go back to my tests and I will run the tests that I have in this solution. So for them to appear, I'll need to open the solution, and after opening, I need to build it, and then it will show my tests in here. So what I can do before doing anything else is ensuring that what exists, it's working. So I'll just run all of them. And I already know, but all of them will fail because they all use a token that is not valid in my local environment. Okay, so what I need to do, I can just open. So it's saying that the token that is configured is not for my local environment. What I need to do is on my local environment that I have, I will generate a new token for my test user. So I will access the user, and I will create an access token for my local test. So I'll just call it Summit as well, with all the access, and then I will configure it. So who works on projects knows that this is the standard solution for our tests. So we have business tests, we have UI tests, we have IoT tests, and all of them use run settings to know against which environment to run. In this case, I will change my local run settings to use the new token, and after I do this, if everything goes well, all of the tests will pass as expected. So I will just execute it. I will just put this a little bit smaller so I can see what is happening in the system. And you can see that in my local environment, the notifications are being created as the tests expected, and all the tests are passing. So I now know that the system that I am using is working as I wanted. So now I can move to the implementation of my requirements. What I will do is, as the requirement identified, is that they want the external systems to be able to provide a severity, and the severity is basically the importance of the notification that by default is high for all of that are being created right now. If I open my, let me see where it is, my code, I will minimize this, and I will know that as a developer, I need to enhance that API. So let me just open it. I will open the solution. I will open the orchestration, and I go into my input object, and I will add a new property into my API input parameters, and I will say that now I will also allow the severity to be provided. So I'm doing this. What this is telling in terms of source code, I'm telling that there is a new property inside of this, and this is a data contract. So I want to update my API so that external systems can access using LBOs, if they use LBOs. Otherwise, they can just call HTTP API. That also works. But as I'm creating a new one and I want to test it using environment or automation tests, what I will need to do is I will build it, and I need to generate LBOs so that a new signature of the API is created and mapped so that my external systems can start using this severity property. So I have built, and now for that, our developer CLI also has a command for LBO generation that will update my local stack inside of my dev box, and will have, or it will create a new container for generating and downloading the requirements or the LBOs. So if I go back to the remote explorer, you can see that a new container will appear in here. That will be the LBO generator. There he is. And I can see what is the state of it and what it is doing. Wait. Okay. So I can see what it's doing. The CLI also has information on what step the LBO generator is. And while this is executing, I will already start doing my test to ensure that my requirement is well implemented. So for that, I will just open my API spec file, and I will copy an existing test because I'm a little bit lazy. And I will just put it at the end, and I will say that this is specifically to validate that the severity is considered. So with severity, and by default it is I. It is a lookup table, so I need to configure that new one. So I'll just put meh. It's not as severe as it should. And before the LBOs are generated, as I know what is the input, I will already write it in here. So you can see that it's not being provided by IntelliSense. So the LBOs that are currently in this solution do not know that this is a property, but I know. So I'll just put severity, and I will put the same one that I have configured at the top. Okay? And just to ensure that this is actually as I expected, I will just validate after that that the severity is meh. Okay. So don't mind this. This is not big code. It's not the best. So I could have a different ways to do the same thing, more readable, more understandable. But for demonstration purposes, I think that it will do. So I have my test, and I can also change the original test that creates the notification without any extra input. That without any input, it still uses the high value or the high severity. So at this point, I'll just remove this one. So what I'm doing here is I'm picking up the last created notification, and I will just see severity. I think I forgot to change this one at the bottom as well. So severity, and at this point, at the end, my new test. Oh, okay, I've changed. Okay, so I have my test ready. My implementation is almost done. I just need to validate it. So the LBOs were generated. So what I can do now is on my test, and I will need to reload because what the LBOs do is they download the LBOs that are generated into my solution, and Visual Studio Code needs to be reloaded to read the new DLL file. And as soon as I do this, I do the same thing. So I open my solution, my test solution, and I will be able to see my test appearing on this testing section. Okay, so I will just rebuild. My new test should appear. I don't want to run all of them right now, so I just want to run. Oh, okay. I just want to run these two, so I'll just run them. And hopefully they will pass as expected. If they do not pass, I can debug my code. So this one failed saying that it was not high, it was high. My bad, okay. High. And this one failed because it was meh, it was actually high. So this means that I am providing the input, but it's not being used. And as a developer, using the dev container as well, I can open the solution and I can debug my source code to identify what is wrong with my source code. So I'm opening the solution and then I do press 5. You can see that it's acquiring a .NET debugger. It will inject the debugger within the host source code, and this will allow me to have a breakpoint into the code and understand why it's not doing what it should be doing. So I can just come here, and we have not much left time, right, Adélio? So maybe what I will do, I will just show you the debug, and then we can do an highlight on what's missing. Okay, so debugging. I have attached debug to my host container, and what I need to do is I need to trigger that action. So I'll just trigger this one. And what this will do is this will allow me to see everything virtualized. So this is not in my machine. I can run tests, I can debug the source code that I do, and I can understand what is missing and improving the source code, okay? So this is running. Why it's not? Right. Okay, it's not entering in the debug. I don't know why, but I don't want to waste a lot more time. Does it make sense to show the video?
Push, you can actually commit the code and you can send them.
Okay. I can commit the code. So when everything is finished, the developer can just commit the code. Everything, the code is in my dev box. I can just say, okay, new fit. First, I need to create a branch. Create branch. I will call it development 50. Create API, create notification with severity. And what was I doing? Create branch. Okay, development 50. Create notification with severity.
No, we had a task. Now we are pushing the source code to the project. So to make sure that the task is actually performed and the code can be running in the pipeline, and so César will show the pipeline as well in a second. So you can see that the pipeline will run to validate that the code that was actually delivered actually passes the test, okay? So, and gets deployed in the MES environment and so on.
Okay, so now it's pushing, it's using, again, my SSH key to do this. As a developer, I can go back to my Azure DevOps project, and I can see in the pull requests, I can see that my branch is here, and that I can create the pull request, and I will just call it create notification with severity. Severity. Okay, so at this point, we enter into the process that Adélio mentioned. So we have pipelines to validate the source code that is being pushed, that it does not break anything that existed. People that have access to the project with the right permissions can see the source code that was changed and approve or disapprove the code or add suggestions. So this is an improvement on collaboration because there's no need of having two different repositories and syncing these two different repositories. So anyone that has access will be able to collaborate to the source code, and then the team can review it, approve it, and then it will be immediately integrated into the packages. So just to have an overview, The pipelines that we have, that Adélio mentioned, are we have pull request pipelines that validate the changes that are being pushed into development to ensure that there is no broken code. And I can show you, this one is running, but I will show you a previous one that executed. So we have two, one that identifies what changed, because we can have multiple packages within our solution, and we want efficient pipelines, so we will just identify the ones that changed, and we will then execute each package that changed and identify if the source code was not broken or the requirements were not broken. So this is the first level. At this point, we are running integration tests. You can see we are running unit tests, sorry. So the unit tests are executed and are listed on the pull request pipeline execution, so we can see what was validated and if it passed or not. So if there is broken requirements, the pipeline will fail and it needs to be fixed. It also provides the code coverage of our solution based on the lines that are covered by the unit tests, and to ensure that most of our code is being validated at this stage. Of course, not everything can be, we'll still need to have integration tests. After this executes, the next process is the continuous integration. So we have also two pipelines, one that identifies what's new, what entered new into the development, and the other one that will build and publish the packages that were developed during this sprint. After the pipeline that runs the validations, we have the continuous deployment process. And this one is the major one. So this is the process that will use the integration environment that Adélio was showing, that will be running in our infrastructure or provided by us for this process of sprint development. So what we do is we prepare the environment, everything using DevOps Center as well, same as you, but everything automated. So we update the environment, we run some test master data to prepare the environment for the tests that we are running, and then we run the tests. These tests are recorded on the Azure DevOps, and if every test finishes successfully and they pass, someone will be able to say, okay, this is the version that I want, I can approve it, and this version will be committed to the repository that then will be accessible by the other levels of systems, so quality system and production systems. So this is the automation, okay? I just want to show you two small things to finish up. So one thing that we can get out of these pipelines is, as Adélio mentioned, we can generate a test report document, and this test report document is executed against the Azure DevOps of the project. The branding can be updated to the customer branding, and the goal is that this report shows what this version has, these requirements, and how they were tested and validated, okay? So in this case, we can see the requirement and the description, and we can have a list of tests that were executed. And if we access them, we can see proof of the execution in case they were UI-based. And if they were just automated tests, we can see the steps and the expected result of each of them. And they will have the identification if they were automated or manually executed by someone. And this will allow you to know that this version was tested and validated, okay? After the approval, what we have as well, and as Adélio mentioned, is that all of the packages will be provided against so okay, it's not an admin, it's fine. Okay, so all of the packages will be deployed or published against two different repositories that will be provided as well. One for development, for sprint-based packages that need to be reworked, refined during the sprint, that are mutable and that are still being worked on. And we have the productive or production repository, where validated packages, packages that are ready to go for qualification for production, will be hosted. They will not be mutable, and they will not be erased. So this one will just hold 2 to 3 sprints of packages, and this will hold all of the packages that are delivered in project. And then the goal is that quality systems and productive systems can access these, so you no longer will need to copy the packages into your site. So everything will be accessible from your site. So that's all from my side, yes.
So we have seen the process of actually developing something and contributing to the project, and we have provided and created a release, okay? So now the release is ready. The same pipelines that you saw that were generating this are the same pipelines, the mechanism is the same, to actually deploy and do the same on a remote system and even provide installation in production, okay? So this is how the things actually are closed. I will go back to the vision slide to tell you the following. So you know today you actually install the MES and you have the containers and the packages, the customization is actually put it on top, okay? So you don't have a kind of container that is unique, because if the deployment process fails, you actually end up with a container image that was not the one that was tested, okay? So by controlling the entire process, entire flow, we can now do this as part of the building process, okay? So what we can do is merge, and we can publish this because we'll have the tooling for this. We can actually merge the code from the product with the code that you just built in the project, and create images, Docker images, that are published in the repository that can later on be installed in the environment in an immutable way, okay? Because it was already, but we can only do this because now we control the entire process. If you do this aside, we cannot have this, and that's why we don't have it today. Because we don't have a way to actually provide a fix for something that is running in production if we don't control the process to build the image that is there. So if we are using Collaboration Hub, this means that we can have containers. This is something that we'll be working on, okay? So it's not available today, but this is where we are heading. So that's why important to know when you select either to do it yourself or using Collaboration Hub, because those kind of things will be available within Collaboration Hub. The other things are AI, okay? AI apply to the development. So how we can help on development, particularly on the upgrades, when you actually change from MES, one MES version to the other, how we can make developers more productive. All that effort will come on top of this, okay? And that closes.